Mr. Mayor. Most importantly, I need to amend my bio. I'm also the grandmother of one, and that's very important. Little Sonny was born, so I'm very proud of that fact that I'm a grandmother. But I am so happy to be here with all of you today, and I wanted to take this opportunity to express to you my gratitude that you would be out here this morning in observance of Memorial Day. For Americans everywhere, from sea to shining sea, this is a very special day. It's a day to remember our fallen heroes, a day to reflect on what it means to each of us to be free, and a day to appreciate the uncommon valor and true courage of self-sacrifice. I'm extremely honored to be with you today for the sacred observance of Memorial Day. The brave men and women who served in our armed forces, those who defined the very word patriotism, have my profound and everlasting respect and admiration. As the proud daughter of a proud veteran of World War II, I stand here inspired and yet very, very humbled by the extraordinary sacrifices millions of Americans have made throughout our nation's long history. You might know that my father was a waist gunner in a B-17 crew in the mighty 8th Air Force. He flew 19 missions over Germany. His unit was the first unit to conduct daylight raids over Berlin, so I certainly consider that pretty heroic. Maybe just as risky was while my dad was stationed in England, he wrote a letter to my mom and said to her that when he returned home from the war, he would marry her. So when he came home on June 28th of 1945, she met him at the train station with a preacher. And 60 years later, it all worked out okay. But I'm especially reminded of a scene in Band of Brothers. At one point, a young boy looks up at his 82-year-old grandfather and says, "Were you a hero in the war, Grandpa?" And the aging veteran, who had lost so many of his close friends in battle, answered simply, with tears streaming down his face, "No, but I served in the company of heroes." It is that kind of true selflessness that will stand as a lasting monument, and perhaps the greatest monument of all, to the men and women of the United States military. From Boston's Bunker Hill, where the battle cry was, "Don't fire until you see the white of their eyes," to the bloodied fields of Gettysburg, and to the chaotic beaches of Normandy, courageous Americans have answered the call to duty for the past 237 years. They fought in the brutal cold and the snow of the Ardennes forest. They fought in the steaming, unforgiving heat of the Philippine jungle. They fought in the barren hilltops of Korea, the rice fields of Vietnam, the sands of Iraq, and the Hindu Kush mountain range of Afghanistan. They fought so we all may live in peace. No words can ever thank them enough for their sacrifices. Instead, the best way to show our respect, our love, and our heartfelt appreciation is to treasure and safeguard the very freedoms they fought and died for. In 1863, during his memorable Gettysburg Address, President Abraham Lincoln commemorated those who gave their last full measure of devotion. Today, nearly 150 years later, his powerful words, scribbled out on a crumpled piece of paper in the middle of the Pennsylvania cemetery, remain the heart and the soul of Memorial Day. We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that a government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. In a speech that lasted just over 2 minutes, President Lincoln redefined the Civil War as a struggle for freedom. Well, as a nation, history has taught us that freedom isn't free, and yet the willingness of some to give their lives so that others may live continues to serve as a great beacon of hope. Hope that future generations of America will one day know a world at peace. The men and women who serve in the U.S. military truly have been our nation's guardian angels since the days of the Continental Army. But the freedoms we enjoy today have come at a tremendous cost, and we must never forget that they've been paid in full with the blood and the tears of our veterans and their families. The past 10 years have been especially hard for the nearly 2 million Americans who presently serve in our armed forces and reserves. They have been stretched to the limit, with many of them serving multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. And yet they continue to serve with honor, dignity, and a single-minded purpose, to protect America at any cost. Sadly, not all of our heroes come home. More than 6,000 U.S. servicemen and women have died in Iraq and Afghanistan. More than 33,000 others have been wounded, and our area has suffered more than its share of losses. Last summer, 26-year-old Army Staff Sergeant Nigel Kelly of Menifee, who was twice awarded the Bronze Star for Valor, was killed in Afghanistan during a counterinsurgency assault mission. Sergeant Kelly was a star basketball player on his high school basketball team, but he always dreamed of serving his nation. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery, one of more than 1.2 million Americans who have died throughout our nation's long history in defense of freedom. Another Riverside County soldier, Army Special Forces Sergeant Aaron Blasho, was also killed last year by a roadside bomb in Afghanistan. The 25-year-old husband and father of a young son was serving his third tour of duty in Afghanistan. Sergeant Blasho was awarded both the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. And for those of you who might be driving back to LA or Orange County today, when you're on I-10 and you're pulling through Banning, and you see on the right-hand side, if you're going west, the Farmhouse Restaurants, please take your time to stop in, have a meal, have a cup of coffee. Their son Joshua was killed while serving in Iraq. And if you go into the farmhouse, you will see the tribute that still remains to Joshua, as his mother works there every day and owns that restaurant. Again, the farmhouse in Banning, please stop in and just tell them thank you for your service, for your sacrifice. And then there's U.S. Navy officer David Desilets, who was born in Palm Desert. Lieutenant Desilets was one of 10 fallen heroes added to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. The 26-year-old Valley native died on September 4th, 1966, aboard the USS Pyro while steaming on Yankee Station in the Gulf of Tonkin. He's one of more than 58,000 soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen who did not return home to their families following the Vietnam War. They were all someone's son or daughter, husband or wife, but they're also part of the military family, where there's an esprit de corps that spans hundreds of years of service and sacrifice. And as the old Army saying goes, once a soldier, always a soldier. That unbreakable band of brothers type bond is shared throughout the U.S. military. The Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and National Guard. They're all proud services, but they're also part of a larger, proud family. So as we observe this Memorial Day, please join me in saying a prayer tonight for all of the brave men and women who have died in defense of our nation since the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. As the great journalist Elmer Davis once said, this nation will remain the land of the free only so long as it remains the home of the brave. Before I close, I just wanted to compliment Chantel for her rendition of the national anthem. I am one of those strange people who like it done traditionally, and she did a fantastic job. It brought tears to my eyes. And I'm also one of those strange people who always get the chills when I hear the national anthem sung, even when it's 90 degrees out. She certainly brought the chills to me and the tears to my face for her great rendition. So I just wanted to once again thank you all for being here today. God bless our veterans, our fallen heroes. God bless America. Thank you very much.